Financial Times new video, Japan's population crisis reaches a tipping point. Okay? I'm starting with this one because it looks fucking interesting. It looks interesting. And then I'll go to the website. I want to know what's happening with Japan. I've talked about Japan a lot on the Clips channel. I think on the main too. Japan is a canary in the coal mine for many, many of the financial problems that the Western world's experiencing. The demographic problems that many countries are experiencing. Japan's at the forefront of all of them, except for maybe South Korea. And I want to know what they plan to do about it, what they're experiencing right now, and what it means for us.
Japan is having fewer babies than ever before. Meanwhile, the number of very elderly people...
By the way, my solution for this, I've already solved this problem on Lemonade Stand Podcast. My solution for it was to airdrop in Elon Musk and Anthony Edwards. So they could have lots of unprotected sex or IVF babies, and we'll turn this whole fucking country around.
People is at a record.
And Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon could help too. How many kids does Nick... Doesn't Nick Cannon have like 14 kids? Video a bit loud. Nick, don't say that. It's gross. How many kids does Nick Cannon have? The reason this is on my mind is because I knew somebody who said they coached Nick Cannon's kids. Not all of them, but some of them. He was a coach for some of his kids. And I made a joke or something, and he's like, yeah, he's a good dad though. Like he pays for stuff. He has 12 kids with 6 different women. Wow. That's wild. It's like just paying for stuff is not the bare minimum for. Okay.
High. This year brings the country to a tipping point, known as the 2025 problem, with Japan's huge post-war baby boom generation now all in their mid to late 70s.
Jesus.
When it comes to living with a shrinking and aging population, the data clearly shows that Japan is ahead of other countries, but also that its path isn't unique. And neither...
Damn, China's bad too. I mean, I knew China was bad, but I thought Japan was worse. China's basically South Korea. That's horrendous. I've heard China even inflates their current population. My understanding is they fell under 1 billion, but still say they're above 1 billion, is my understanding.
Neither are the potential solutions. So the rest of the world is watching to find out, can a country shrink and grow old gracefully without losing its economic power and making success much harder to come by for the young?
They keep saying it makes success harder to come by for the young. And I could see that. But I could also see a Children of Men style thing, if you've seen that movie, where the kids are so pampered and successful because they have no competition. You know, it really depends on what the taxation is like. If the few working adults are taxed to their entire worth to try and pay for an aging society, well then yeah, they're gonna revolt.
In the minute since this film started, an average of 3 Japanese have died. 1.3 babies have been born. That means the population has shrunk by 1.7 people.
Oh, damn.
Every minute,
R.I.P.
every day, every year.
Damn.
Keep going at the same rate, and according to the government's own projections, by 2050, Japan will have shrunk by a number equivalent to the current population of Australia.
これまで人類が経験したことのない異常に激しい変化を経験する
For 20
Yeah.
years, I've been covering Japan, and the most consistent story through that time has been demographics, the low birth rate, the shrinking population, and what the government has been trying to do to address all of that.
I feel like none of it's
The
worked.
2025 problem is that everyone born in Japan's baby boom years between 1947 and 1949 is now in their mid to late 70s, the point in the average person's life when medical and care costs start to soar.
Right.
The worry is that Japan's current and future working population is too small to bear the financial burden of the social, health, and welfare system that Japan has come to expect.
Is this the dark reason why they have those shows where Japanese kids have to go out and do it on their own? Where the kid has to go to the store by himself? Is it because they're trying to get him working young? They need him old enough. Yeah. Old enough, dude.
日本社会の在り方に対して、ものすごく大きな影響を与えると考えています。
So, what exactly has gone wrong? And is it even right to think of the problem in these terms?
Japan's total fertility rate, that's the average number of children that a woman would have over her reproductive years, has been among the world's lowest for about 70 years now. Most recently, it's been at around 1.2, where 2.1 is what you need to maintain a stable population. Now, South Korea's birth rate has gone even lower in the last few years, down to around 0.7. But that's happened much more recently. What makes Japan interesting is that it takes several decades for a low birth rate to start having these big societal impacts. So the fact that Japan started that journey so long ago means it is the place to watch to see what this means for society.
Japan
It's kind of cool of Japan to take one for the team internationally. You know? To try 240% debt to GDP and to try 70 years of low birth rate so that we can all like watch them and see how it goes. That's pretty base, Japan. Thank you. W.
Japan has been bracing for full-blown demographic crisis for more than 30 economically stagnant years. But during that time, the country has continued to produce world-class companies and maintain admirable social stability. So what, if anything, should the rest of the world learn from Japan's experience? Japanese people have been able to live to extreme old age en masse because of the country's economic success, a generous public healthcare system, and a healthy lifestyle.
Japanese people live longer because they play rugby in their old age. I can't imagine that. I don't think statistically that has any impact. I mean, I know that they walk more. I know that they eat a healthier diet is probably 90% of it. I don't think it's full contact rugby.
The Fuwaku Rugby Club organises its teams by age. The players wearing yellow shorts are in their 70s. Spring chickens compared to those in purple who are in their 80s.
副理事長の丸山克彦です。現在73歳。かれこれ60年近く。
Why aren't these people running for office? Are they stupid? They're in their 80s. They should be making the laws that govern the nation they live in. They should be setting up a system that brings all the wealth to people like them. I was too young. I was still learning. They don't want to settle down yet and become the man. They're still going to smoke weed and play rugby for at least another decade.
ラグビーのプレーをし続けてます。これからも100歳でトライをすることを目標に頑張ります。
Today, they're just training. But these boys are too tough for walking or touch rugby. They play the game full contact with no holds barred. And some of the players, including Mr. Mario...
Bro, that sounds crazy to me. Playing full contact rugby in your 80s is just asking to have a serious injury. That is just acting. Like, there is just no fucking way someone isn't getting one wrong hip check, you know? And
Maruyama still have a surprising turn of speed.
僕も今73だけどだいたい40代のつもりでいつもいるんだけど緊張感を持ち続ければ常に若さが保てると。
Mr. Maruyama and his friends may be fighting fit.
Is this a psyop by the Japanese government to kill off old people? Is Japan trying to make rugby seem cool to old people so they all fucking kick the bucket?
But in official terms, they define Japan's crisis. The baby boomers were born just after the Second World War, and as young adults, they drove the country's economic miracle through the 70s and 80s.
僕の若い頃、みんなやっぱり希望を持ってたんじゃないかね。自分は将来何になりたいというものを明確なものを持ってたし、で今の若い人たちはなんかそういうのが足りないんじゃないかな。
In 2020,
Bro, I wonder why. There's two of you to every one of them, and they have to work twice as hard to pay for your fucking rugby lessons. You own all the property.
5, the last of this huge generation turns 75 and officially enters the state of extreme old age, with all that implies for welfare, pensions, and the burden of care. That might have been manageable if there was a large, younger population to support them. The 2025 problem is that unless something radical changes, there isn't. On the second Monday in January every year, tens of thousands of 20-year-olds head to shrines like Meiji Jingu in Tokyo for a coming-of-age ceremony. It's a tradition that goes back over 1,300 years and marks the official transition into adulthood in Japanese society.
Okay.
For many, it represents a clear step into their future. Thoughts of career, marriage, and families are all wrapped up in the day's celebrations. But for 2 decades, the day has been increasingly bittersweet.
Oh, no.
A moment for Japan to assess just how small its cohort of new adults has become. In 2024, only 720,000 babies were born in Japan. That's a 5% decline from 2023, and the 9th year of decline in a row.
Yikes.
It's also the lowest since modern record-keeping began in 1899.
Dude, that is crazy. That is crazy. It could be the lowest ever, realistically. Yeah, because you can't imagine pre-1899, you know, outside of like when the population wasn't there. That's such a... Why did they miss 3 years? In the mid-40s? I wonder why. Yeah, what happened in 66, dude? What happened here? Everyone just stopped fucking for a year. What is this? Everyone just forgore? Damn, it's crazy how horny World War II made everybody. Damn, dude. It's crazy. They get back from World War II and they just fucked like rabbits.
Looking at the queues of couples lining up to have their picture taken in front of Tokyo Station as the sun goes down, and you'd think that marriage must be booming here. But look,
Based on this chart, the thing that would save Japan is World War III. Can we be clear? Like, another world war would get them right back in the bed. I'm just spitballing ideas here.
the lowest since modern record-keeping began in 1899. Looking at the queues of couples lining up to have their picture taken in front of Tokyo Station as the sun goes down, and you'd think that marriage must be booming here. But look closer, and about half of the couples are visiting from elsewhere in Asia. Also in 2024, only 500,000 couples got married. For Japan, that's critical. All but 3% of Japanese babies are born to parents who are married.
So for all the talk about dual income, no kids relationships, what we actually see across all sorts of countries, Japan just being one, is not a rise in the number of people who are happily married or cohabiting, choosing not to have kids. It's a reduction in the number of people coupling up at all. But the simple number of couples out there who even could have kids if they want has fallen a lot.
Kanako and Takeshi got married on paper in 2024,
On paper?
but have come to the 2,000-year-old Okunitama Shrine in the Fuchu district of Tokyo to make a proper show of it.
Oh, okay. I see.
Their baby is 5 months old and is the only guest. To save money, they're just having their pictures taken rather than a big ceremony.
その中で結婚式披露をやる人っていうのは経済的な理由でできないとかやる必要がない
Only
と
half
希
of
薄化され
what
て
is-
大体全体
Well,
の
it's expensive,
半
right?
分ぐらい。
Statistically, Kanako and Takeshi are likely to have a second child. The overall fertility rate in Japan, the average number of children born to a woman in her lifetime, is a stubbornly low 1.2. But when only looking at married Japanese women, the rate goes right up to 1.9, which is actually higher than the overall rate in the US.
Okay.
The sad reality for Japan, and in particular for Japanese men, is that we're not looking at a collapse in the desire for wedded bliss. The problem is that Japan's 30-year tussle with stagnant wages means that there's now a surplus of what some, perhaps cruelly, describe as economically unattractive men, who
I
are
see.
seen or see themselves as poor marriage material.
I see.
We talk a lot about wage stagnation in the West, but in Japan, it's not just one decade that wages have barely grown, it's more than 3. And this matters particularly for young people who are getting out there into the labour market. Their economic and financial prospects are greatly diminished if wages in general aren't growing. That's really important in this birth rate conversation because research is consistently finding now that there's a strong relationship between people's socioeconomic status and whether or not they get into a relationship and have kids.
And I'm sure it wouldn't be much of a leap to draw a connection between this long-term wage stagnation and a government that has propped itself up with endless borrowed money to keep zombie companies afloat and reduce any impact on innovation or change for 30 years. It's just interesting. That's just interesting. The Hus need our help. So it's just interesting how these economic choices by governments can lead to real societal-wide pain decades later. No, it's somehow wokeness. You think it's the wokeness in Japan?
家賃が高いわけですから、そういった、大都市圏生まれ、都市圏生まれの若者たちが結婚しようとすると、生活水準が上がる見込みがない。
それだけの所得がある人、経済的な余裕がある人が結婚式をやるってことです。経済的な余裕がなければやらない。これも一つの要因になってます。格差社会が起きてるし。
Japan
Inequality.
first started to fret about its low birth rate towards the end of its boom years in the 1980s. But as with climate change, policies that require voters to prioritize long-term threat over short-term concerns are a tough sell.
Dude,
まあ多く
so
の人
true.
にとっては実感しづらい
So
と
fucking
思います。影響が出るのはやはり、20年とか30年経ってから影響がはっきり出てきますので、非常にこう分かりにくい問題だと思います。
Historically, policymaking has focused on getting already married couples to have larger families. But recently, there's been a shift. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government, which sees itself as a pioneer of unorthodox policy on this front, has said that its own staff only need to work 4 days a week to encourage dating.
Hey, we covered this. Me and Aiden covered this. Not even on the on the podcast, but on the Clips channel. When Aiden came over, we read the story.
It's also launched a marriage app to help promote romance between the young and the fertile.
実際都の都庁の調
The young and the fertile. A young and fertile marriage app. That's romantic.
査で、
It's the Fast and the Furious spinoff. The young and the fertile.
結婚に関心があるんだけれども、特に婚活、活動してないって方がそのうち7割いらっしゃるってことが分かりましたので、
The
そういった
slogan is
方々
also
にですね
family,
何
yeah.
かこう一歩後押しできるような形で取り組めないかということで、
But the truth, and everyone knows this at heart, is that measures like this will only go so far.
Yup.
The only way for Japan to make it past the 2025 problem in comfort and without social collapse is by allowing greater levels of immigration. Vidya is from Mumbai. She's one of about 800 Indians who've moved to Kirigaoka, a suburb between Tokyo and Yokohama, where she volunteers at a local cafe.
I came with my husband as he's working in IT company, and I'm here been from last 7 years.
Vidya's children go to an Indian school nearby.
Japan's like,
And while the kids all play together in this local park, the Indian community have so
She's got a
far
LA
mostly
shirt.
kept to themselves.
oh, it's Dodgers. 'cause of-
Outwardly, the government gives the sense that it has no plans for a big loosening of immigration. In reality, Japan has quietly pivoted to accepting more immigrants, including unskilled workers. One projection suggests that at the current rate of increase, foreign nationals could represent about 10% of all residents in Japan within 20 years. For Japan, that's as
even-
big a psychological shift as it is a practical one. Sachie Musashi set up the Kiri Cafe 2 years ago, initially as a project to ease relations between the new Indian community and local Japanese.
でそこでこう
all of the Japanese immigrants should be weebs. It should be like a big neck-bearded guy who reads manga and anime all day. That would be the best outcome. 10% of Japan should be It won't help with the birth rate. It won't help with the birth rate, but it will get them out of here, you know? It's a win-win.
同じ地域で、人と人がつながるでそこがこう常設の場所であるっていうことにも私たち意味があるなと思う。
Kiri Cafe is now something of a community centre, offering cheap lunches, language classes, and the chance to cook Japanese
That looks
food.
good.
I have seen
Bro, Japan's freaking out right now about rice prices. They're spiking. Rice prices are way up. And there was a economics minister in Japan. They asked him about it, and he goes, I don't buy my own rice. People give it to me. People fucking hate him. People want to murder him, dude. He's getting so much blowback. He's like, that was his answer. He's like, I don't buy it myself. Yeah, he resigned. He resigned. Dude, they were so mad at him. I can't believe he said that. Did they make it domestically? Yeah, but not enough. Not enough. It's not enough. I think it's what Kendrick was talking about in his recent album. He was talking about how rice production in Japan has not kept up with demand. And as they have to import more rice, there's a few solid rice importing nations, but there's not enough, is what he was trying to say. And it's getting more expensive because their currency is getting weaker. Japanese currency continues to devalue. Their borrowing costs continue to rise. This is happening this week. I mean, it's happening as we speak. Their 30-year just went up above 3%, which is fucking crazy because it's already artificially low. Nobody wants to loan them money, bro. Just print more money? No, but every time you do that, you devalue your currency. It's a vicious cycle.
the food is like only ramen and noodles, like the Japanese food. That comes in mind first thing. But when I come here, I come to know, oh, there is different home cooked style food is also there.
そういうことで同じこうキッチンに立つことでなんか何でもない悩みを話ができたりとか、そのいわゆる味付けとか調理法だけじゃなくってちょっとこんなこと嬉しかったんだとかこんなこと困ってるんだっていうのが本当にお互いにシェアできるようなこう隔たりのない。
Here in Kirigaoka, the South Asian community is slowly starting to integrate with its Japanese neighbours. But will the rest of the country be as welcoming as Mrs. Musashi, especially when the immigrants are not highly educated IT specialists, but lower skilled workers in construction, care homes, and retail?
I mean, Japan's
Japan has opened up on immigration in recent years,
Pretty
but levels are
racist.
still much lower than what we're used to in the West. If we look at the most recent data, fewer than 5% of people in Japan were born overseas, compared to figures above 15% in countries like the UK, US, and Germany.
If immigration does remain comparatively low and marriage and childbirth never recover, Japan is staring into a long and potentially painful old age. The country's infrastructure is about to feel an unprecedented strain. Extreme old age means Japan needs more nursing homes, better hospitals, more carers, and more money to support all this, simply to keep living standards where they are. It's a massive headache, even after all these years of knowing that the 2025 problem was rumbling over the horizon.
Over the last 45 years, the amount of money that the Japanese government spends on pensions and other...
Here's what I would do if I was a politician. If I was president of Japan, what I would do is simply talk about solving the problem while personally getting wealthy using government connections, and then it's someone else's problem when I quit. Has anyone tried that? Has anyone tried talking about solving it, but not really making any major changes, and then using your time in politics to get wealthy, and then that sounds pretty good, huh? The world needs this sort of radical change in approach. Yeah, I think more leaders around the world should do this for the big problems of our time. I feel like we have a problem all over the world right now with leadership that cares too much. They're trying too hard to do long-term solutions for things. And it's like, boring. Why don't we focus on yourself and your happiness and leave the real problems for the next guy?
Support for the elderly has rocketed and is now equivalent to about 10% of GDP. That's gone from significantly below the average for high-income countries to significantly higher.
Damn, bro, what is this? 10% of GDP on elderly care? And they're not even, I mean, it's about to get worse.
But there are other ways of measuring the costs of an elderly population too, such as the rate of innovation. The number of patents granted to Japanese researchers has fallen significantly in line with the decline in the working age population.
And while Japan must cope with the consequences as a nation, businesses must work out how to make some money out of it. As any parent knows, nappies are an important product in the first few years of a child's life.
ユニチャームそのものは生まれてから亡くなるまでずっと寄り添っていくような商品があって。
The company sells its products all over the world. But in its home market, Unicharm has shifted its focus from babies to the elderly.
ビジネスチャンスと捉えてます。で、人口自体はやっぱり減少してる中なんですけども、我々はやっぱり女性を起点にして、まさにライフタイムバリューでどうその女性の一生の中で、日本の場合は人生100年時代という言葉が使われてますけれども。
Everywhere in the world, aging is a big business opportunity. But here in Japan, where the population is 30% above retirement age, it's a massive opportunity.
That's so wild.
Itoen is Japan's...
Dude, 1 in 3 Japanese is above retirement age. That really is fucking crazy when you put it like that. And getting worse. 1 in 3. That is absurd. Damn, that's crazy.
Biggest tea maker and producer of the bottled Oyocha brand that ranks as the country's #1 favorite. But here at Asia's biggest trade show for elderly care, they're marketing a new version of Oyocha with a thicker, slightly gelatinous texture.
人口のそのうちの2割から3割ぐらいの方は飲み込みに不安があって、飲み物にとろみをつけて飲まなくてはいけないという課題がございます。で、味もそれほど美味しくはないですし、あと手間暇もかかってしまうので、飲料メーカーとしてそういった方々に美味しくお茶を飲んでいただく、というために。
But the business of...
And people say Japan isn't innovating anymore. They have new brands of adult diaper and tea that you can drink when you're old. Who needs Sony as a global leading electronics brand? Okay, when you have thick tea.
Elder care isn't just about adapting things for the old. Although nobody likes to talk about it much, Japan has to work out how to cope with what will, for the next 10 years at least, be a steadily rising number of dead. Tokyo Bay, with Haneda Airport in the background, is the perfect place to say goodbye to a loved one and scatter their ashes in the sea. But today, it's just us and the crew on board this boat. This is funerals by proxy, and we're scattering the ashes of 28 people with no friends or family present.
Dude, that's so
あと日本で
sad.
いうとお一人様の問題もやっぱり広がってきても手頃な値段で埋葬できる方を埋葬できる方法を選ばれる方が増えてくるんじゃない
That's
かなという
so
ふうに思います。
Houseboat
sad.
Club is currently
Jesus.
benefiting from Japan's skewed demographics. But in the long term, Japan's funeral business, like so many of the country's service industries, will ultimately start to shrink. The tale of Japan's economy over the past 35 years has been about matching anemic growth with the certainty of a declining population. But in China, the same period has been dominated by a different story, one of unparalleled economic growth.
China is coming to the end of a 3 to 4 decade boom. And one of the reasons that it's starting to slow down in the domestic economy is the demographic headwind from the slowing growth in the population.
45 years ago, the Chinese Communist Party introduced its now infamous one-child policy that has artificially accelerated China's demographics onto a similar path to the one taken, willingly or unwillingly, by Japan.
The reason the Communist Party introduced the one-child policy back in 1980 was because they were worried about a booming population at that time, and they thought they didn't have the resources to feed and clothe and house that population. As China developed, the population growth naturally declined on its own anyway. So you had this sort of
double whammy.
dual effect of the one-child policy and a natural decline in the fertility rate.
While countries like China and also Japan and Korea are experiencing particularly acute versions of this demographic
Nothing
crunch,
cute about it.
some kind of story like this is playing out almost everywhere. In France and Germany, the working age population has already peaked and started to decline.
Dude, it's kind of funny that Germany's is so different from France. Like, they share a border. They're both like similar economies, similar, you know what I'm saying? They're right there. It's, you cross the border, you fuck that much less. Dating requires humor. I mean, France, the UK, these aren't even that bad. It's like a relatively steady birth rate. This is not even that bad. Relative change?
And countries like the UK and US could soon be heading the same way.
For more than 2 decades, we've understood the shape of the 2025
Germany banned the nuclear family.
problem and the role that Japan's baby boomers would play in it. But all efforts to reverse it have failed. Japan's experience is a warning to the rest of the world. Demographic decline is on many national horizons. And yet, in spite of the mounting economic problems, Japan has done an excellent job of maintaining social stability, good health, and a globally competitive economy, even as its demographic time bomb has detonated. When the rest of the world catches up, it may come to realize that despite all of its failures, Japan's experience is actually what success looks like.
That's ominous. That's ominous. Well, if Japan is a warning and a canary in the coal mine, what say we all take this information and file it away? Let's file it away and do nothing about it. All right? Bada bing, bada boom. Toss that away. We'll deal with it when we get to that bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That's a future us problem. We'll burn that bridge when we get... Yeah, circle back in 20 years. By then, Japan will have figured it out anyway.